Is this day 4 of experts?
I think so. You can't go appreciate Iron Man 2 if you don't know how he became Iron Man.
True statement.
Welcome to the Impactors Podcast. I'm Corey Carter.
And I'm Ron Cool.
And we are the owners and founders of Hindsight HacKing Media, agency, podcasts, funnels, graphics, and more. Head on over to gethhm.com to learn more.
Guys, we created this podcast to help you go create an impact today. Not tomorrow, not yesterday, today. We're taking all the fluff, all the BS out so you can go create an impact.
And today's topic is...
we are continuing with expert secrets, and we're going to be talking secret number 10, the 4 core stories everything you do should have.
That's right. And you know, this is really an expansion of the Epiphany Bridge, right? Because if we're going to do a training, if we're going to do a webinar, or if we're going to be truly trying to sell, you know, not one-to-one, but one-to-many, right? There's 4 main stories that we need to get the audience to go from what they understand to where we need them to be to buy your thing, right? And so the first one, this is one that's always been a challenge for us. And I think it's kind of funny because we've been talking about this same story for years now. But what story is the first one everyone needs to tell?
The origin story. So just looking at Iron Man right here, right? Iron Man 1 was his origin story. Or Batman, you know, everyone knows what created Batman and what was the event that created Batman, because his origin story is told over and over and over in so many different ways.
Yeah, and that's a really good point to talk about those two, like in any superhero movie, right? Like you can't go appreciate Iron Man 2 if you don't know how he became Iron Man.
True statement.
Right. And even if you got into halfway of the first Iron Man, like you couldn't appreciate and be like, well, why does this guy with a bunch of money have this super suit? Like you wouldn't appreciate it without the backstory.
One of my favorite movies is Iron Man 1. Just watching him build the suit and have that, you know, in this cave, like that origin story is phenomenal.
Yeah. So everybody think about your origin story in regards to what you're trying to do. Right. So what, you know, Ron and I can tell stories about what led us to podcasting in our agency, what led us to the Impactors Mastermind, right? Like we can tell the stories of that. Now, it may not be as cool as Iron Man's story, but you know, it's still pretty fun. And
I think it's pretty cool, like Iron Man
along the way. And then, you know, so there's 4 core stories. Number 1 was the origin. Number 2 is the vehicle framework story. What is that?
You got to be able to walk them through your vehicle or your framework to get yourself from your origin to where you are now.
Yeah, and you tell the story of why you created what you created, but and it's ultimately like, you know, we've talked a little bit before about learned or earned, right? Like you've got to tell the story of how you earned the right to talk about what you talk about, right? How you learned what you did. You know, when it came to funnels, I talk about how I went through one funnel away and started going through that. And then I went through CF Design School, right? Like those are, I can tell stories that helped, you know, the audience know that I learned or earned my way to be able to accomplish a task.
Well, and mine, we went through the podcast. I became a podcast coach. I helped hundreds of people launch as a coach before we even got to putting that into our agency.
Yeah. But I've one of my favorite stories you tell in regard to graphics for our company that goes way back to even when you were a kid.
Which one? Now I'm
the one as a kid is still mad at you about.
Oh, geez. Yeah, my mom is still mad at me. Like
33 years later.
Yeah, 30 something years later, right? She is still mad at me. I was accepted to the Walt Disney School of Drawing, got a full ride scholarship for computer graphics. And I was going to have to go to California when I was 17 years old and live by myself. And at 17, like I was a little wild. There was zero chance I was going to make good decisions at 17. So I decided I didn't want to go right to college. I wanted to take a year off since I graduated when I was 17. Well, Walt Disney doesn't like that. And I never got offered that scholarship again, ever. Right. And to fast forward, that's why I don't like the movie Toy Story, because there would have been a good chance I would have been working on that program.
Right. But we utilize it in, like, you've had this ability with graphics, pre-work, pre anything, work. And so much so that Walt Disney, company sought after your skills. Right. And so, that's a way to sell when we talk stories, the graphical design aspect of our company. Right. And so I love that story. Like, that's a great vehicle framework story to discuss. All right. So the next one, these are always the harder ones.
Oh, yes.
Is the story of internal beliefs.
Yep. So this is something you tell yourself that you can or cannot do, or you just believe. Here's I can go back to graphics, right? So graphics come easy to me. So I just assume everybody can do them easily. That's my internal belief that I had to get over in order to make it a value add for our company.
Yeah. But even, if I'm telling a story to sell something, I'm going to tell my origin, I'm going to give the framework for the vehicle. But then after someone learns the framework, then we need to tell more stories that help them get over their false beliefs.
Yep. You have to tell stories that match your framework, that helps them have their epiphany, if you will, that this framework can help them get past their false beliefs.
Yeah, exactly. Because everybody, as you're trying to get them into your program or whatever, you tell how awesome and how you discovered it. And then someone in their minds will, well, I can't do it because I'm not like Ron. I'm not like Russell. I can't, I've got this false belief. And so the next set of stories, or the next story, is to get them out of there. Like, oh, some of them that can't do tech skills, I can't edit a podcast. Right. And so you and I, in our program, we teach people how to edit their podcast. And part of that is then they can decide if they want to utilize a person to do that, or they can do it themselves now because we taught them.
Right.
So that internal beliefs, that's the next group set of stories. And then, obviously with internal comes
external. Right. So now there's these other external forces. It could be people not supporting you. It could be that imposter syndrome could be in there. Maybe it's more internal, but there's so many external forces that are driving towards you that could also stop you, that you have to tell stories on and give people examples to help them correlate that to their own external beliefs.
Yeah. And so, I think one of the simplest versions of that is time. Right. Oh, I'm a dad. I've got 2 kids. I don't have time to go learn how to build a funnel or to go and record a podcast. Well, then we need to tell stories of, well, all you got to do is take 1 hour a week and you can do XYZ with the podcast. Or all you got to, you know what I mean? Like, you start telling these stories of how time is not a true objection. Right. And what that external, oh, well, I've got I'm a single mom and I can't do, well, where's this? Are you watching Netflix? Like, you know what I mean? Like, you could tell these stories.
Oh, I'm going to share a story that I've never shared.
Oh,
that you and I just talked about.
Okay.
Has this thing.
Okay.
This Your thing. Phone? My cell phone. For people that are not watching the video, and if you're not, why? Go to YouTube. Like, come on, get with it. Anyway, or our Facebook group. I went. What was it? Been 2 months, almost 2 months, and I made a very conscious decision to almost eliminate my cell phone usage. Like, I use it for business. That's it. Because what I was finding, this is embarrassing, I was on my phone 13 hours a day on average. Okay. Now, when I made this conscious decision, it went down to 3.5 hours. Okay. So that's almost 9 to 10 hours a day that I was just jacking around on my phone instead of spending time with my family, being present for my family, being involved with my family, right? Because I felt this external thing that I needed to be on to do what we do, but it wasn't even helping us because I was just jacking around on it.
Right. So the story you were telling yourself was, I don't have time to, engage with the family or cook dinner or help clean or whatever that was. And then it would bleed into when at work, you needed to do stuff with the family, but you didn't have time because you had to work. Right. Like it was all those things snowballed.
Right.
And so now you found the one solution to get that time back.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And it's a life-changing time back. I mean, think about if you're sitting there and I said, Corey, I'm going to give you 9 hours of your day to do with it as you want. What would you do? Like, I'll tell you what I did at first. I didn't know what to do. Right. Because all of a sudden I had all this free time. And then what happens? I was starting to feel guilty on how much I was on my phone. Right. And now I forget my phone all over the place. I forget it in my car. I forget it upstairs. It's just never with me anymore. Like I'm not tied to it. And I was tied to my cell phone for years. Like that was something that Rachel would always like beg me to get off my phone. She hated my phone for at least the last 5 years. I know she hated my phone. It was probably longer than that. It's crazy.
Yeah. So anybody out there, an external belief, what do you need to get your person over? What story do you need to tell to get them to think about that external thing that's holding them back, right? To jump into your program. And again, time, I think, is one of the bigger ones. And if we make a little shift, like put your phone down for a minute, then most likely you'll have the time needed to put in what you need to do, right? Because I know most of us jack around on Netflix or jack around on our phone.
Mine was TikTok. I actually deleted the app because there was no reason for me to be on that app.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe someday we'll get you doing some dances for AJ.
I will never get on TikTok again. I promise. I've deleted 2 social media apps because of it.
Nice.
2. Got to get time back. So time, not an excuse. Quit it. No fluff, no BS. Take your time back. Go make an impact.
Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. If you want to learn more, head on over to impactorsmastermind.com. We have a special group waiting just for you.
Guys, why are you still listening to this? Get off your phone. Go create an impact today.